Just because you get all the calculation correct in the model, it really doesn't mean it's a good model, because
what was the learning experience, or maybe the takeaway?
I found the most important thing is a good modeler should always, the hard part is how to use a simple formula. It's very important for a good modeler to thinking about that.
Keep it simple, because your business partners and your users will complicate it.
As a finance person, I have very limited investment in share market.
It was really interesting. It was a good learning experience. But yeah, my stocks did not perform well.
I honestly never seen any model can still running well once they reached 50 megabyte. I think that's more like the best practice from modeling side.
If you have a transactional model, you know there's going to be operational. What would you recommend in most cases?
As a modeler, you know my answer probably already. I always like to
Welcome to Financial Modeler's Corner, where we discuss the art and science of financial modeling with your host, Paul Barnhurst. Financial Modeler's Corner is sponsored by Financial Modeling Institute.
Welcome to Financial Modeler's Corner. I am your host, Paul Barnhurst. This is a podcast where we talk all about the art and science of financial modeling with distinguished financial modelers from around the globe. The Financial Modeler's Corner podcast is brought to you by the Financial Modeling Institute. FMI offers the most respected accreditations in financial modeling, and that is why I completed the Advanced Financial Modeler earlier this year. I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Ruby Liu. Ruby, welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. My pleasure to join you today.
Yeah, really excited. I know it took a little while for us to connect. We've both been busy, so I'm excited to have you on here. So let me give a little bit of background about Ruby. Ruby has over 16 years of professional experience in corporate finance, valuations, and financial modeling. She previously led the Sydney modeling team at KPMG Australia. She also served as the head of corporate finance for an electricity transmission business. Today, she is the director in the valuations team at KPMG Australia. She has successfully managed and delivered valuation and transactional modeling projects for large infrastructure assets, both in Australia as well as internationally, receiving positive feedback for the work she's done. She currently applies her unique expertise in corporate finance, valuation modeling to advise KPMG clients on capital raising, investment management, financial analysis, and modeling. So that's a little bit about Ruby. Ruby, first question, we're going to jump into it. Tell me that horror story. What's the worst financial model you've ever seen?
Okay, it's actually, we want to receive a model for our valuation analysis. And the model itself, the size is over 100 megabyte. And lot of the calculations the model is using is actually via macro. So you can guessing it's a big black box. And because of the size and the macro driven, and you found from normal user perspective, it's extremely painful. So the size make the model, every time we were joking about, we can hit open the model and we go grab a coffee and then come back, the model will open. And then with some analysis we are doing, because it's very macro driven, so people need to spend a lot of time to understand the code first. Then we can understand how to run certain analysis we want to do. So on addition of those two things, and there's a lot of like meta formulas in the model as well, which is definitely not helpful. So basically, we are using a very high spec laptop, particularly for this model analysis. And every time using a model, it's not a pleasant experience.
That sounds awful. A lot of user-defined functions are just, yeah, no thanks. I'm not a big VBA guy. I think I would have just closed it and been like, all right, somebody else's problem.
Yeah, we will wish that one is the case as well when we're using the model. Yeah.
I bet. I inherited one, and I call it a model loosely because it really wasn't a financial model. It was a data dump that fed a churn analysis. And the person had kept years of history and they saved the file as an XLSX, not an XLSB. And it was 1 GB.
1 GB.
And they're like, it opens pretty quick on my gaming machine. We had a 64 GB gaming machine. And I'm like, okay, if you have to have a 64 GB gaming machine just to open this model, you got a bigger problem. Yes, it was over 1 GB.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Clearly, I'll tell this story to my team to make them feel a little bit better, because 100 MB compared to 1 GB, it's not too bad.
Yeah, but you had a lot of macros. I didn't have any macros. It was mostly just a ton of data and some basic formulas. So it wasn't complex. It was just they were saving way too much history. They were trying to use it like a database was the biggest problem.
Got you.
But yeah, when I saw that, I was just like, are you kidding me? What have I got myself into? So with this model that had a lot of user-defined functions, 100 megabytes, a lot of VBA, what was the learning experience or maybe the takeaway from seeing somebody build a model that way?
The biggest one I will say is a lot of times people are thinking we build a model to make what we're trying to do, like basically meet the purpose. Like we get a calculation right, we get the analysis we want to do in the model. That's a good model. But actually, I found the most important thing is a good modeler should always keep the model user in mind. You just need to remember, just because you get all the calculation correct in the model and in the way you thinking it's most efficient best, it really doesn't mean it's a good model, because you need to considering who are the user. So that's probably the biggest experience I actually learned from this model, is being on the other side and now as a model builder and a modeler, then on the different side as a model user, I really appreciated how important when the model build a model and thinking about, okay, who are users? So that's probably the biggest experience I learned from this experience. You just need to thinking about the other side. When people use your model, will they find easy to use and they will find, it's efficient and meet their purpose instead of the modeler's purpose.
And that's what I'm constantly having to remind myself. I have a tendency to be like, I could build that formula, no big deal. And then you're like, yeah, but does somebody want to have to figure out what I just did?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's something that you start to learn more and more with experience. Early on, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool to build this complex and it works. Look at me. And then you realize, no, simple is the way to go.
Absolutely. And I found some people, especially from the mathematics degree, sometimes exactly what you're saying. They found using dynamic formula or some, unique, normally used formula is actually quite cool. But honestly, as a good modeler, the hard part is how to use a simple formula to make your job done instead of use some really funky and, people don't know formula to do the job. So that's absolutely, it's very important for a good modeler to thinking about that.
100% agree. The more simple you can make it, the better. And as I like to say, keep it simple, because your business partners and your users will complicate it, no matter how simple you keep it. So let them do all the complication for you.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, what interested you in finance as a career? What made you choose this kind of career path?
I always like a number when I was a kid. And we always been told, you probably want to do the things you're good at. And during when I grew up, I constantly get recognition about my math good scores, etc. And then when I started going to the uni, chose the major, I was thinking, well, if I'm relatively good in math, and at the same time, I thinking finance is quite cool industry because we can use money to make money. So I think let's go with finance. But that's the young Ruby. Now I was thinking about actually finance industry is nothing like what I initially imagined.
Not surprised.
But that's where at the beginning I was brought me to finance, because I always thinking finance is a quite amazing industry. It's not like some like electricity or commodity industry. They actually have a tangible asset. Finance is really people using money to make money. So how to do that one and still maintain a good process and governance in the industry, I found it's actually quite intriguing and very interesting. And as we can see already, because of the finance industry, like global financial crisis, all these things, it actually have quite big impact to the whole world. And the 19th, the dot-com bubble. So I still thinking this whole industry is fascinating, and I probably just learned the scratch of it. But again, it's not as simple as, oh, we just make money by simply use money.
Be nice if it was, but no, definitely a lot more complex than that. And when you mentioned the global financial crisis, I was in grad school at the time. So I remember, Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns collapsing and thinking, am I going to be able to get a job when this is all done? I was there at the 2006 to 2008. And we had an investment club where somebody had put up an endowment, and we were actually investing this money. When it hit a certain part, it would be set aside for scholarships. And I remember we did our presentation in the investment committee, and we're like, this is the best presentation we've ever had. It's clear you guys learned a lot, but we never want to go through a year like this again, because we did not perform well. Yeah, I don't know what we lost, 20% or whatever the value of the fund was. And the funny thing is the undergrad students made money, and it was all because they picked a stock that got acquired and went up like 200% in the acquisition. And, they didn't have any other winners. They just kind of got that one high risk stock. It was really interesting. It was a good learning experience. But yeah, my stocks did not perform well.
Yes, I actually have quite probably a little bit skeptical view about share market. I found like, unless I have a lot of time, like a massive time to monitor the market on a daily basis, or I have a lot of money, I can potentially make the market. Otherwise, even for myself, interestingly, as a finance person, I have very limited investment in share market, because firstly, I don't have a lot of time. And secondly, unfortunately, I also don't have a lot of money to make the market. So,
It says, I think Warren Buffett has said it really well. He's like, unless you're, going to really study the market and you think you can beat the market, just invest in an index fund, invest in the whole market and let it grow and move on. You're going to get good returns. You're not going to hit home runs, but you're also not going to lose everything.
that's definitely a good advice, especially for people just want to get a relatively stable return instead of, make a big money overnight. 100%.
Yeah, we'd all love to have invested in Microsoft or Apple or whoever when they started. But the reality is, there were 10 people that invested in the other companies that we don't even know the names of anymore.
Exactly. And you may lose your whole investment, already by now. Yeah, 100% agree.
But I wanted to ask you a little bit. You worked as the head of the Sydney modeling practice. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what that experience was like, maybe what that entailed.
Yes, that one is actually, I really appreciate KPMG gave me that opportunity, because when the first time they talked with me, say, do you want to lead the Sydney modeling team? I was actually quite flattered, because I was like, wow, okay, I didn't expecting that. I was thinking I just joined the team, as a more senior member. So I found it quite interesting experience. So firstly, I have a lot of freedom to shape the team culture, and I really enjoyed that. We actually have around 9 people, so it's not a big team. 9 people, including myself, and our average age probably around 27. And I constantly joke, very young team. And that time I was 32, and I constantly been told I was the one dragging the team's average age down. I'm like, thanks very much, guys.
Nothing like people letting you know your age. They'll do that.
Yes. But I had a really good experience with them because they are very eager to learn, and we have quite healthy pipeline. So we do both model audit and model build. So I actually gave them regular training, I think once per quarter training. And we definitely played hard and definitely work hard. So you can imagine the big four culture. We always work hard, but we also play quite hard. Like I think we did team event, building event every quarter. So we went to do some laser tag, escape room, and we ran the boat, do a 1 hour trip around Sydney Harbor. But at the same time, after 10 p.m., you will see our team still working in the office. That's before COVID. So overall, it's a quite good experience for me, and I made some good friends as well during that experience time. And also, it really helped me to basically build some rapport with the client as well, because KPMG have a quite good network. So we able to building a lot of different models for different client. That's where I realized, because before I joined KPMG, I was more focused on transactional model. But then during this experience, I also, being able to exposed to a lot of different type of models, like operational model, consulting model, and sometimes I won't even call it a model, but they say, hey, I want you to help build a model, and understand what's their requirement. I was thinking, this is just one of analysis tab, So overall, it's a very, very pleasant experience for me. I learned a lot, and I also get a lot of friendship and knowledge from that.
And there's a few things in there I love that you really said. One is being willing to play and work hard. You got to have fun, especially if you're in the office after 10 at night. I know, valuation, investment banking, some of those fields can be sometimes feel like they're 24/7 when you have a deadline coming, right? Some really long hours. And if you don't build a good culture, the burnout's going to be even quicker. There's still a high risk of burnout. Anytime we work a ton of hours, there's always that risk. But the more you enjoy the people you work with, the more you have a healthy culture, the easier it is to, thrive or enjoy an environment like that.
Exactly. Yes.
So I can understand that. And I was going to say, your activities sound fun. I want to come to the escape room and laser tag. And although I think it would be a little bit of an expensive trip for me to get out there. Today, you support valuations. You work in the valuations team.
Correct.
So what is your role? What is your primarily doing there? Are you building the models today, working with the clients? Talk a little bit of what all of that entails.
Yeah, it's actually slightly different as what I used to work in the modeling team. So in the modeling team, I was the lead in Sydney, and it's a relatively smaller team. And we are mainly building model and doing the model audit. But right now in valuation, it's a larger team. And in Sydney, we have almost 25, 26 people, I think. And we also, it's a national team, same as a modeling team anyway. We're also a national team. And what I'm doing now, we're still managing projects team of each job. But mainly, I will be more like, I have to say, more executing instead of, lead the team. But I still quite enjoy, because very different experience. And for valuation, we don't really build a model anymore, and definitely no model audit, because that need a special credential. But we actually use model on a daily basis, because most of the valuation has a model underlying to support our valuation, and we will do a lot of analysis. So we still have model. We basically still live with model on a daily basis, and using the model, like we more like reading the client's model, and based on client's model to run analysis. That's where it really helped me to understand the other side, the model user side, to thinking about, oh my God, this is how we feel when we have a good model or bad model. So that's the modeling involvement. And then for valuation, we doing mainly 3 type of valuation in the high level. For the umbrella saying, one is for the listed company. If there's a transaction triggered, the listed company go private, or there's a merge or split, we're doing a valuation as an independent expert. 2 is the infrastructure valuation. So basically for large fund, they invest into unlisted infra fund or infra asset, then you engage us as independent valuer to value those unlisted assets. And this is where we see a lot of like model from the underlying the infrastructure asset, which is come from the transaction at the beginning. Then they transition to the operational model. And then the last one is purchase price allocation, which is more accounting valuation. So that's probably the key three valuations we are doing at the moment. But as I mentioned, it is quite fun and a quite different experience. But at the same time, we still use model on a daily basis.
Yeah, it sounds like you're seeing a lot of different things and probably gives you an appreciation, especially for what's good and those little disciplines that sometimes, especially if you don't have to have a model audited or you're not in a formal area, it's easy to be like, oh, I'll just quickly do this because I'll remember it's there, or I'll build this. And, the next person's like, why did they do that? As you pick up the model, like driving me crazy.
Tell me about it. That's the one first we receive, as I mentioned earlier. Once I received the model from the large file transfer, because you can't send to an email. Before I even open the model, I look at that 100 megabyte size. I was like, is this for real?
Oh, I totally believe you. That's how I was when I saw the one I did that was, a gigabyte. I was like, are you kidding me? This can't be real.
Yes. And when I was in the modeling team, I'm very proud to say my team never built any model reach that size, not even close.
Yeah, no, if you're getting up, I would say over probably 20 megs, you need to be rethinking what you're doing. Ideally, it should be under 10. There are times where you have a lot of data. Okay, manage it via a database or Power Query, or you'll pull it in separately, because you get a big enough data with enough columns, it's going to take up a lot of space. Outside of that, it's being efficient in your formulas a lot of times and your formatting, which is just good hygiene in my mind.
100% agree. And I think 20 megabyte is really the best practice. Sometimes the model, if they structured really well with the proper formula use, it can still running smoothly once it exceeds 20 megabyte. But I honestly never seen any model can still running well once they reach 50 megabyte. That's my personal experience. Yeah, but 20 megabyte, 100% agree with you, Paul. I think that's the more like the best practice from modeling side. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the smaller you can keep it, the quicker it's going to open and run, especially if you have people on older versions of Excel or anyone using 32-bit versus 64-bit. I mean, obviously, machines are getting much quicker. And as we go forward, they'll be able to handle more and more. That doesn't necessarily mean we should do more and more.
Exactly.
I'm curious, kind of stepping back to the transaction models and doing valuations. You mentioned purchase price allocation, different things. Are they mostly DCFs, or you do a lot of, comparables? Because it sounds like you got splits, acquisitions, going private, a lot of different type of transactions. Is there a most common method you're using for valuation, or is it typically multiple different approaches in these models?
Valuation always tend to as long as we can with the available information. Sometimes which is very unique situation, you really lack of information. But normally we tend to use one primary method, and then we cross-check the value with the second method. So evaluation mainly have three approach. So the first one is everyone knows the income approach. So you will take a method like you mentioned, the DCF, and sometimes the earning capitalization, and a dividend models. Those are all in the income approach. Another one is the asset approach, or they say the cost approach. So it's basically about from the net asset perspective to value the business. And the third one is the market approach. So like the one you mentioned, use the comparable companies or comparable transactions, just basically trying to get some evidence from the market as a reference to help us to get the value. So I have to say, based on my personal experience, the most frequently used approach is income approach, and then market approach second. We use asset approach from time to time, but it's not that commonly used. But definitely it's also very standard valuation approach as well.
I would imagine asset is a little bit more for unique cases. Most of the time it's income and multiples, or using the multiples to cross-check the income,
Exactly.
that type of thing. That's what I've seen on the few. I worked on a couple models for M&A, some very small ones in my career, and that was usually the case, is building some kind of DCF and then checking some multiples against it to see what we thought the valuation would be.
Exactly. Yeah, that's quite common. We use the income approach, DCF, and then we use the market approach and the comparable method to, like you mentioned, the market multiple to do the cross check. Yes.
FP&A guy here. And as you know, I am very passionate about financial modeling and the Financial Modeling Institute's mission. I have been a huge fan of the FMI for years, and I was super excited when they decided to sponsor the Financial Modelers Corner. I recently completed the Advanced Financial Modeler certification and loved the entire experience. It was top-notch from start to finish. I am a better modeler today for having completed the certification. I strongly believe every modeler needs to demonstrate they are a qualified financial modeler, and one of the best ways to do that is through the FMI's program. Earning the accreditation will demonstrate to your current and future employers that you are serious about financial modeling. What are you waiting for? Visit www.fminstitute.com/podcast and use code podcast to save 15% when you enroll in an accreditation today. So I'd love to talk about one thing, right? You build a transactional model, and I think anyone who's built both transactional and operational models knows they're quite different, right? Transactional are usually a one-time event for the model. Operational, I come from FP&A. That's where I spent my career, budgeting and forecasting. You're always updating those models. And so there is a lot of thinking about, how do I roll things forward every single month, for years versus one time. How do you think about that? Because I imagine a lot of the transactional models, and the customer comes back and, hey, now how do we make this operational so we can see how we're performing against whatever the transaction was, whatever that value was they assumed. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting question, Paul. Again, this is only my personal opinion.
Sure.
And I actually found this very interesting because, as I mentioned before, I also building transaction models in my earlier careers for investment banking side. When you worked 10 hours at 2 a.m., and the model need to finish all the updates for the next day, you really don't thinking about much about how can I make the model running fast, how can I choose the best formula. You really just want to thinking about, let me finish this one, get it done, and I can go to sleep. So transactional model, a lot of times at the beginning, it's always building in our nice structure, well built, and then towards the end of the deal, with time pressure, with last minute change, you will see transactional model. Most of the time, it's not built for ongoing usage. It's more like for the transaction and lock up the financial close version, and then for the bank and the people to referring to for the future payment schedule. But unfortunately, a lot of times I found people actually directly use transactional model for the operation purpose because it's handy. We have a transactional model with all the forecasts, all the tax arrangement, all the situations we will discuss during the deal, and all the assumptions already in the model. So it's very handy. We can use the model, and normally it's quite complicated model already, and we can use the model easily for our ongoing valuation, ongoing operational, management. So a lot of times the deals model directly being used for the fund managers for the operation in the future. And then you realized, okay, the transactional model situation changed. The business after 1 year, 2 years, things changed, the arrangement changed, and you will see some different modeler, obviously not going to be the IB modeler, coming in based on their understanding of the model, make some change or amendment from here or there, and potentially, this person may resign from this company, and then a new modeler comes in, and then thinking, oh, the business changed again, we need to add something or edit something again. And then they come in and then they do another change. So once we receive some operational model, firstly, you can tell, oh, this is definitely a transactional model because it's a very standard build up structure for the transaction. But then here and there, you will see some amendment, clearly can tell from different modular. And some of the section, the link has been dropped and been told, oh, don't worry about that part. We never use that part. And the output, you will have a lot of like a random add-in sheet with the output because they need to build a report for the board meeting and board reporting, which has nothing to do with the initial investment output. And then you will have some random sheet added in for their output building. So overall, it's very messy, no very well structured, and with a lot of different modular signatures on the model. And trust me, there's always linkage dropped, and then if you go to the name manager, you will see there's so many ref error in half of the names, etc. So interestingly, the model is still working, but honestly, we'll run our high-level analysis to make sure direction-wise the model is not go crazy. But I will not be surprised if the model auditor comes in. They can still identify hundreds of things the model can be either correct or, doing well. So that's probably the key things, I think I feel once I start to see the model transferred from transaction to the daily operation.
Yeah. The worst models are the ones that you pull data from a lot of sources and they keep all those named ranges from all the different sources. And you end up with thousands of hash ref and you're just like, okay, where do I start? Can I just delete all these? What's going on? I've seen some. I had one that I had to start over. I tried running a macro. I tried opening, wouldn't even open it, wouldn't run the macro against all of them. It had so many in it. I finally just had to give up and start the model over. I had so many. I'm done. Let's just rebuild this thing.
Tell me about it. And another thing is the format, the cell format. A lot of times, the finance team or accounting team, they have some underlying data source, and people just copy and paste data directly. And sometimes you open the cell format, you will see like this. Once I open a model, which is actually not in KPMG, in some other employees I used to work with, I see two languages. Like in addition to English, there's another two languages in the basically in the cell style, and the cell style, I have to scroll down for a while to see all the different style. And I was like, do you guys know the cell style also eats memory of Excel as well? So it can go quite crazy. And I'm sorry, if I can talk this, I can really talk about this nonstop.
I'd like to get your thoughts. Do you think, if you have a transactional model, there's going to be operational, is your advice to just rebuild a separate model for operations? Or do you think it makes sense to try to take that transactional and make the changes, knowing all the challenges, the broken links, the issues you see? What would you recommend in most cases? Do you think it's better to just, hey, let's build an operational model after the transaction's done, so it's really designed and the thought goes into, hey, updating it, all those monthly things? Or do you think most of the time it's better to just, modify that transactional model? Do you have a preference?
As a modeler, you know that, Paul. You know my answer probably already. As a modeler, I always like to build a model from scratch because it's much easier. Like, sometimes client will say, hey, Ruby, you have a model. Let's just do some quick amendment. It will be easier for you. I'm like, no. Trust me. It'll be much easier for me to rebuild one from scratch instead of understand the current model or linkage and make sure everything is still correct after my amendment. So that is definitely my preference. Although having said that, I also understand from commercial perspective, timing and money and effort is always a
Sure.
issue. So sometimes because even when we're building the operational model, you need to fully understand the transaction model before you build operational model, because the transaction model is support the
Yep.
M&A and really have the best logic at the time for the targeted business. So if you finish transaction within a year, you need to rebuild an operational model. You need to still, use transactional model as the reference point, and then building your operational model tailored for the finance team's ongoing usage purpose. Basically, I would say if you have the time and effort, it's definitely well worth to rebuild that one from scratch using transactional model as a reference. Otherwise, you can use the transactional model for operation now if your business, like the business you acquired, doesn't change much from the acquisition date. But normally after 2 years, I almost always suggest people to rebuild one from scratch. Yeah, because normally the business will change after the transaction.
Makes total sense. There's enough changes that after a certain amount of time, you're just better off. But I get it. There's also the economic, the commercial, the time. I just need something quick and dirty. Customer doesn't want to pay a lot, whatever it may be that you're like, all right, we'll just figure it out.
Exactly, yeah. But I would say I see some transactional model surprisingly building quite well. You can probably use for the first year or even second year. But honestly, after a while, the target company changed a lot as well. It's really much easier and actually also in client's benefit to rebuild, because you need to make an informed decision. And if you can't trust your model, then how can you make an informed decision to help yourself, right? So fundamentally, it still will be the benefit to the client. Yeah.
We're supposed to trust our models? I'm kidding. You've obviously built a lot of different models, covered different industries. Do you have a favorite industry that you like to model, or maybe a favorite deal type that you like to work on?
Wow. I actually will say that's a trick question, and it's actually a difficult question. I actually found one thing I really enjoy in my work at the moment. It's the variety. So I can get exposed to a lot of different industries, and as you said, seeing a lot of different models, doing a lot of different valuations. I probably don't have a favorite industry, but my most experienced industry probably will be in electricity industry, and the more popular one is the renewable at the moment because of my work experience, and because of that one. So I have a lot of knowledge of the industry. So when I'm building a model or reading a model from this industry, I found it's quite easy for me and quite quick. Having said that, for the deal type, I personally don't like PPP, the public-private partnership deal. I enjoy infra because it's my background. I always found the deals type, it's more like the pleasant experience is not really about which type, but about the people you are working with. Sometimes I work with the really experienced investment bankers or very, very good lawyers. I think a lawyer is very important in the transaction. And I found, just to make things so much easier compared to, sometimes, you found like, man, you need to meet in the middle ground with us. You can't just say this can't be done. As a lawyer or as the legal areas, you need to help us to thinking about how can we make the deal work, middle ground, both parties feel comfortable. So this type of things I found it's the key things to make my deals experience instead of the particular type. Yeah. Not sure if I answered your question.
No, you did. That's helpful. And it sounds like you really enjoy the variety. You have some deals that you don't like. I get it. It's a difficult question to answer. It's always kind of fun. I get all kinds of answers when I ask that. I ask it from time to time.
Yeah.
I had one person, he goes, in Bennett. He's actually Australia. I don't know if you know him, but his comment was hotels. He
Oh,
just really
interesting.
liked modeling hotels. Thought they were very straightforward. And so I thought that was interesting. You get all kinds of different answers. We're going to move on to a little bit more what I'll call kind of the standard questions. In a minute here, we're going to go to rapid fire, but I have just two more quick questions I want to ask before that. First, what's your favorite Excel shortcut? If you have to pick one, what's that one you like or maybe use most? You can define favorite however you want.
I will say two. One is the shortcut. It's shortcut. It's easy. It's I don't even know how to say the shortcut. I have to use the shortcut on my keyboard to remember because it's so natural now. So it's when you hit Shift Control and to the right and Shift Control to the down. So that's where you carry all your formulas to the Control key and Control R. So that's where you basically can carry your formula very quickly from the left to right and top to down. Those ones are my favorite, and I probably use the most. Yeah. So
I've heard a few people say that. I'm not surprised. And I laugh when you said you have to do it. I worked with a guy who spent a long time in investment banking, and he told me at one point he'd be sitting in meetings after he'd done a ton of model building, and he would just be kind of automatically, without even realizing with his fingers, doing different shortcuts.
Yes.
Kind of be tapping on the desk because it was such just built-in memory.
Yes. And the shortcut is actually very, very useful. I would recommend anyone who want to do modeling, learn that. In the modeling team, I used to train my team. I take over their mouse. Just like they don't have mouse. And just like, if I see you guys using mouse, I'll hit your hand. But then later I found they're using shortcut much better than me. Then I'm like thinking, oh, damn it. You guys are much better than me and much quicker now.
I'd get my hand hit a few times. I've got better, but I still occasionally will be playing with that mouse. But...
Oh, no, I'm using mouse this time as well now because I don't build a model that frequently. So
that's my thing too. I'm the same way. There's definitely times I'm like, I'm just using the mouse, but there's times when I'm trying to hurry or doing something. I'm like, all right, let's use more of these shortcuts. So I'm a little bit of a hybrid.
Yes.
All right, I think we're going to move in here to our rapid fire question. So let me set how this works. I don't know if you've heard this before, but you can't say it depends because you could answer that to all these. You have to pick one side or the other.
Okay.
So kind of a yes or no. And then at the end, you can elaborate on one or two because the reality for most of these is you could answer it depends. The idea is to give a quick answer. So I'll give an example here and then we'll go through them. If I was to ask you, circular or no circular references? If you had to pick one, which one would you pick?
No circular.
Right. And so that's it. And then at the end, if you want to elaborate on a couple of them that you're most passionate about, we can do that. Because I realize we can always find an exception to almost everything, right? It's kind of how it works. All right. So you gave me the circular or no. We know no circular. VBA or no VBA in models?
No VBA.
I figured after your example of worst modeling, you'd say that. Do you prefer a horizontal or vertical layout to your models?
Horizontal.
All right. Dynamic arrays in models, yes or no?
No.
All right. External workbook links, yes or no?
No.
You said that with authority. Most people do. They're like, please, just don't do it. Named ranges, yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Do you follow a formal standards like FAST or SMART or some of those standards that are out there when you're building your models?
Yes.
That's what I figured if you worked for one of the big four there. Will Excel ever die?
Maybe. I know you said I can only say yes or no. This is a tricky one because I was thinking in my lifetime, let me put it this way. In my lifetime, no.
I've had more than one person that says that. Or yes, but just don't do it in my lifetime. I've got that one as well. Do you think AI will build the models for us in the future?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you stand on sheet cell protection in your models? Should you use it? Yes or no?
No.
All right. Next one. Do you believe financial models are the number one corporate decision-making tool?
Yes.
You hesitated a little bit on that one.
The reason for that is because model is a tool. So it's garbage in, garbage out. So I will definitely thinking a model is a number one tool we making decision, but it's tricky one to say because sometimes people can make a right decision with our model. Some people can make a wrong decision with a model.
100% agree. Yeah, it's not a simple one. I get it. And then the last one, what's your favorite lookup function? Do you like choose, VLOOKUP, index match, XLOOKUP, or something else?
Index match for sure. But these days, Microsoft have the new formula lookup. I found it's also, I use sometime, and index match is the most one. XLOOKUP, yes, sometimes as well. But the index match is the most common one I use.
And that's what I find with most modelers. Index match is probably number one, followed by XLOOKUP. And then you get a few others. Choose. I've had people say offset. Others like, I don't care. Just use whatever works. So I get a little bit of everything.
If people use offset for lookup, okay, offset itself, it's a dynamic formula. Interesting.
It's
okay.
volatile. So if you're using it all over your spreadsheet, it's going to take a while.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I was thinking that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you can do it, but it's definitely not my first choice.
Yes. It won't be mine as well.
I figured as much. Is there any of those you want to elaborate on a little further? Kind of what your thinking was?
I honestly thinking it's probably, I already mentioned like an AI builder model for us in the future. That's an interesting question. I didn't say yes because I seen how powerful, the generative AI working these days. And the GAI is mainly work on the unstructured information at the moment. And we both know modeling is a very structured data processing. I think it's because in the past, people have trouble to process unstructured one. So the generative AI is more focused on processing the unstructured data at this stage. But given how powerful I think the AI these days, I actually have no doubt AI eventually can build a model for us. But I still have the strong belief, doesn't matter at which stage. I really hope, the scientific movie situation will not happen. We're not going to be dominated by AI. So as long as human beings still the dominated animal, I think, AI can build a model for us, but we still will require human beings to overseeing the model building and analyzing the model output to get comfort. That's probably my view. And also I'm thinking for AI to build a model for us at this stage, based on my reading, seeing, and experience, I think still will be at least 10 to 15 years away time. Yeah, to get the really good, like say, transactional model AI built for us. Man, even human being, it's very painful process, So, and it's not a large data processing. It's more like the quick changing and also the lot of like finance, tax, and commercial elements in there and changing all the time. And each case are different. So I found those are all the challenges to AI. But definitely it's a very interesting topic for AI and modeling in the future. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, very basic models that can build some stuff today. The more complex you get, the more you need the human involvement. And you're always going to need the human, in my mind, around the assumptions, the validation, the part that needs that judgment.
Yes.
The the more task-based your model is, the more it's do step A, B, C, the easier it is going to be for AI to do it. And it's pretty amazing what it can do today. But yeah, the more complex the model, the more you're going to need the human involved for sure.
100% agree. 100% agree.
All right. So just have two last questions and I'll let you go here. First one is, if you could offer one piece of advice to our audience to be a better financial modeler, what's that one piece of advice you'd give them?
Wow, you probably know the answer already, Paul. It's keep the model user in mind.
I love that. And how do we do that? How do you really keep the user in mind? What have you found helps you do that?
I used to say there's three things you should keep in mind, which is a good model needs to fit purpose and not fit your purpose, fit the model user's purpose. And then simple, it's very important. Don't thinking you want to dazzle the people for the model build. That's not the right stage for you. Simple, and I'm a very big visual person. So please make your model as pretty as possible. because sometimes I see people make the color look like a Christmas tree in a one spreadsheet, one sheet. I'm like, let's try to make it a little bit more visual appealing, please. And the last one is calculation speed. I always think if you can make the model meet your user purpose by provide them as simple as possible model, visually appealing, and then calculating fast, that will be good already. So then when you're building it, how to structure the model, how to choose formula, how to formatting them, you keep those in mind, it will just help you to make the decision correctly. Yeah.
Well said, and I agree. Keep the calculation speed, make sure it can calculate quickly, keep it simple where you can, visually appealing. We don't need a Christmas tree, we don't need a million colors. Even if you think it looks pretty, it's usually just distracting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then just keep your user in mind. Really think about what they're trying to solve, not what you think they're trying to solve.
Exactly. 100%. Just listen to your user. And if they really want, they can try to be user on one time, and they will feel a lot of pain from the user,
Very true. So last question. If our audience wants to learn more about you or get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, okay. They definitely can go through your channel and also, through my LinkedIn profile, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes. So if anyone wants to contact you there, they can. But thank you for taking some time to meet with me. I really enjoyed chatting with you today and just talking about financial modeling. Appreciate the experience you shared and hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for having me here. It's definitely a pleasure, and I also enjoyed our chat. If you ever come to Australia and Sydney, you know where to find me, so we can grab a lunch and talk about modeling for sure.
No, I definitely will. It's on my bucket list. I hope to get over there one of these days. So I'll look you up when I get there. Thank you again, Ruby.
No
I really
worries.
enjoyed.
Thank you, Paul.
Financial Modelers Corner was brought to you by the Financial Modeling Institute. This year, I completed the Advanced Financial Modeler certification, and it made me a better financial modeler. What are you waiting for? Visit FMI at www.fminstitute.com/podcast and use code podcast to save 15% when you enroll in one of the accreditations today.